Okay, this is chapter 3, section number 2, part 1. This is over Hernan Cortes. As a teenager, Hernan Cortes knew that he wanted to be a great adventurer. His parents tried shipping him off to the University of Salamanca, which is in central Spain, to get their wild child to settle down and become a lawyer. But their hopes were dashed after 2 years when Cortes flunked out and returned home. Cortes had plans of his own to become a soldier and to head to the New World in search of gold. A cousin was already headed to the colony of Hispaniola, which is modern-day Dominican Republic in Haiti. And Cortes was eager to be on the next boat bound for the New World. Had it not been for getting himself injured by falling out the second-story window of a married woman's house, he would have left Spain in 1502. Instead, he was forced to wait for another 4 years until a second opportunity presented itself. The island of Hispaniola had already gone through radical changes when the 19-year-old Cortes arrived at the busy port of Santo Domingo. The island was full of men like Cortes who came from petty noble families seeking to make a name for themselves. These men were not used to doing physical labor and were not about to start now. Instead, they recreated a mini version of European feudalism right here in the Caribbean. Cortes was given land and became a citizen of Hispaniola. Using Indian slave labor, he quickly turned the rainforest into a profitable plantation. But the farm life was not for Cortes. Despite his wealth and slaves, Cortes wanted more. After a successful expedition to conquer the natives of Cuba, he was given a government job documenting the gold and slaves being sent back to the Spanish crown. In addition to a cushy job, Cortes was given even more land, even more slaves, and a gold mine. But Cortes had his sights on an even bigger prize, the Mexican mainland. Cortes heard stories of an advanced civilization, known as the Mayans, with huge stone temples and palaces from Spanish expeditions returning from the Yucatan Peninsula. More importantly, the place was loaded. The richest gold strike in New World had been found there just a few years earlier. Cortes was virtually foaming at the mouth to get his chance to claim this civilization for Spain. But Diego Vasquez, the governor of Cuba, and a close personal friend of Cortes, had plans of his own to become governor of the Yucatan territory and forbade Cortes from selling. Cortes and Vasquez, both headstrong and ambitious men, locked horns. Needless to say, this rivalry put a damper on their friendship. When Vasquez tried to prevent him from going to Mexico, Cortes went anyway, despite a warrant for his arrest. In March of 1519, Cortes and his crew landed on the Yucatan coast, where he met up with Spanish priests who had come on an earlier failed expedition. The priest, Geronimo de Aguilar, had been shipwrecked and taken as a hostage of the Maya. Aguilar watched as 5 of his comrades were sacrificed and eaten, and somehow he managed to escape, was enslaved by yet another village, and after 8 years of servitude had been set free. For the past few months, Aguilar had been hiding in the jungle when he crossed paths with Cortes. Lucky for Cortes, too, for the priest spoke Chontal Mayan, and for the rest of the expedition served as the official interpreter. Continuing along the coast, the Cortes crew reached the site of modern-day city of Veracruz, Mexico. He was greeted with an attack by the Tabasco tribe. Yeah, they're the ones that the hot sauce is named after. With 500 men, 200 Cuban slaves, a few cannons, and 6 horses, he was vastly outnumbered by warriors armed with arrows and spears. According to one Spanish foot soldier, Bernal Diaz del Castillo, he said the whole bank was thick with Indian warriors carrying their native arms, blowing trumpets and conchas, and beating drums. Cortes decided to do the opposite of what most soldiers would do in a similar situation. He charged. The Spanish, with their shiny metal armor, riding animals that looked like large deer, minus the antlers of course, and their weapons that spit smoke and fire, soon had the Indians retreating into the cornfields. Cortes realized that he had the most powerful weapon on his side, fear. The Indians had never seen horses or guns before, and Cortes would use this fear of these strange weapons to his advantage over and over again. Cortes ordered his men to give chase, killing anyone who fled. The Aztec Emperor Moctezuma had no doubt gotten word of these strange white men marching through his land. The emperor set out a party to find out what these strangers wanted. Cortes replied that he was come in peace. His only intentions was to trade with the Aztecs and meet with the emperor on behalf of Spain. Cortes wasn't about to show his cards yet, after all. Gifts of cotton cloth, exotic feathers, and trinkets were exchanged for Spanish wine, metal tools, and food. When the Aztecs brought painters to record what they saw, Cortes decided to make the most about it. He ordered his men to parade on horseback with swords drawn and fires canning. The Aztecs were clearly impressed. But Cortes wasn't interested in trinkets and bird feathers. He told the Aztecs that he had a disease of the heart that can be cured only with gold. We just call it good old-fashioned greed. Moctezuma had no intention of allowing the strangers anywhere near his capital city. He tried to buy Cortes off with gifts of gold, but this backfired big time. Cortes was more encouraged than ever that he had found the legendary kingdom of gold. According to Aztec legend, the serpent god Quetzalcoatl was banished across the great ocean and one day would return. On the day of the gods returning, kings would fall and the Aztec world would end. According to legend, Moctezuma had been getting visions and dreams of bad omens. In total, there were 9. Moctezuma was very confused. Omens were very important to the Aztecs, and they were not to be taken lightly. Yet Moctezuma was no fool, and he knew these men were no gods. He sent gifts of precious feathers, gold, and jewels, and waited to see what they would do. Mistake number 1. Waiting would be Moctezuma's biggest mistake. Before leaving the coast, Cortes ordered his 11 ships to be sunk, preventing his soldiers from turning back to Cuba. There was only one direction to go, Tenochtitlan. The Spanish had with them a secret weapon more useful than any gun or horse. Her name was Malinka. But after she converted to Christianity, she became known as Donna Maria. Donna Maria could speak Mayan and Nactu, the language of the Aztecs, 2 different languages, and later learned to speak Spanish. She told Cortes how many Aztec soldiers would be, the layout of the city, and even Aztecs' fears and superstitions that would be used against them. The love affair between Cortes, who had a wife back home, by the way, and Donna Maria began a journey that brought down an entire empire. Why would she do this? Because Donna Maria was not an Aztec, but a Nahu, who had been enslaved by the Tabasco people. The Aztec Empire was particularly brand new, less than 100 years old, and had come to control central Mexico by bloody conquest, human sacrifice, and heavy taxes on the people they conquered. Many people who lived in the Aztec Empire were more willing to switch sides against the Aztec masters. One of these people were the Tixchalans, who would become the most important of all of Cortes's Indian allies. Cortes knew that he couldn't take on the mighty Aztec Empire head on. Instead, he decided to use the old divide and conquer routine. As Cortes marched towards the capital city, he recruited other soldiers who had no love for the Aztecs. By the time he came to the outskirts of Tenochtitlan, his army of 500 had grown to thousands. But compared to the 200,000 soldiers in the Aztec army, they were still vastly outnumbered. Cortes had one more card to play.